Welcome and thank you for taking the time to attend this webinar session, which is designed to show and guide you all through the process of entering and uploading your budgets and forecast onto the JDE system. I'm Paula Hudson, Senior Group Finance Analyst, and present with me today is my colleague Sharon Hubey, who is a JDE Financial Analyst. The format of the presentation will be a short explanation as to why we upload the budgets and forecast onto JDE Edwards, the process to upload the forecast and budgets, and also some ground rules which we will need to have in place. There will be plenty of opportunity as we go along for you to ask questions, but if you could do this by using the chat window to record your questions, we will endeavour to answer any questions at the end of the presentation. Also be aware that the voice control is placed on mute in the locations so that we can alleviate any excess noise and feedback. The presentation will take place in two sections, the first section being for the non-JDE users and then the second section for the JDE users. Right then, you may ask, why do we need to enter monthly financial figures, budget figures and forecast figures into JDE? The simple answer is we need to be able to track and consolidate financial figures of the business at group level. By each company entering and recording financial budgets and forecasts into the system, we have visibility of the performance of the business at company, regional and group level. For those locations who are not running ledgers on the JDE, but are however reporting the monthly numbers through JDE, we will show you how to enter the budgets and forecast using a simplified method within the JDE Edwards system. The process of entering the budget information onto JDE is very simple, and you can enter it by business unit level or account level. It is a requirement that you phase your budgets as you expect the income or expenditure to be recognised, but this will only be applicable for budgets for 2016. The value themselves can be entered into JDE manually or uploaded through a spreadsheet. Both methods will be shown to you during this presentation. Fundamentally, the process is the same for JDE and non-JDE users. However, JDE users operate a full manufacturing, distribution and finance models, therefore will enter in a greater detail due to the extended chart of accounts. Before we commence, we need to inform you of some ground rules. The budget itself should only be entered by the finance department of your company, and even though there may be a group function operating within your company, the budgets and forecasts should be created by that function and then passed on to your finance department for input to JDE. The currency you should enter for the budgets and forecasts should be the base currency of your country, and for reporting purposes, these will be converted at the budgeted exchange rate that has previously been advised to you, that is, the rate on the 1st of July 2015. The amounts themselves should be valid and correct to the best of your knowledge. The numbers should be entered in as much detail as possible, with the profit and loss being phased over the full year by period in all circumstances where appropriate. The balance sheet, however, should be entered in month 12 as a total and not phased. Please note that for the non-JDE companies, inventory should be split appropriately, raw materials being code BSF1, work in progress being code BSF3, and finished goods being BSF2. Dividends. If you reflect any dividends paid or received, you must enter the corresponding entry. Hi, sorry about that. What I meant to say there was the dividends. If you reflect any dividends paid or received, you must ensure that the corresponding entry is reflected in the company that you have the dividends paid or received from. Right then, so we'll commence with the forecast. The first demonstration will be on how to enter your forecast onto JDE using a manual system. So we're going to log into JDE. And for this training purposes, we're using an example company. And we'll navigate through the system to the budget entry by business unit. Right, first of all, in here, you would put your company number. And the fiscal year, because we're entering the forecast, is 15. And here F2 for forecast. F2 represents 6 months of your actuals, and then the remaining 6 months of this year being forecasted to your end position. You enter your company number again here, and find. As you see, there's only one to select, so we select that option. We need to show periods, and we need to skip to the end. Now, as for the forecast here, we're only going to be entering into period 12. So we're going to make a grid format. So we'll drag period 12 to the front of this table. And then we will save that as a grid that you can name whatever you deem relevant. Here we're going to just put period 12 and OK. Now we're ready for input, and as you see, now that the period is at the front of the table, it's easier for use. So we're going to do a few examples of entry here, just remembering that you need to put your negatives in for your revenue, therefore a credit figure, and for your cost or expenditure, it's a debit figure. As I say, we're just going to give you a couple of examples here as input, because obviously yours will be in more detail. Right, when you think you've completed the process of your input, then save. So OK to save your document. OK then, so now you've saved your file. There are two methods to actually check your input. You can either export this into Excel, or there is a report within BI Publisher, both of which will show you at the end of the budget upload that we're going to show you using Excel. Okay, so what we'll do now is we'll show you the method to do the budget. And here we'd have to enter 16 and your ledger type is BA. Bind. Again, it will just generate for the non-JDE users 1, so we just select that. And here again, we show periods. And we go to the end. As you can see, the grid is defaulted to the one that we used for the forecast, which was by bringing period 12 to the front. And for this purpose, we need to revert it back to show all columns. There we go. Right, for input into the budget here, we don't need it broken down through the P&L. Sorry, for this one, the balance sheet, we don't require it to be phased. That just needs to be your total figure for your budget placed in period 12. However, for the profit and loss, For the budget for 2016 only, we require you to phase how you expect the expenditure or revenue to occur. So we're going to do now, just put a couple of numbers in and then we'll show you how we use the export method to, sorry, no, we're going to export this into Excel for you so you then can start working on the numbers. As you can see, we've now exported the grid into Excel and it's in the same format. So you can now use this document to input your phasing of numbers for your P&L and your balance sheet, obviously, as I say, just in period 12. So we're going to do a couple of examples there for you. Just to remind you again that your revenue should be negative and your expenditure and cost should be a positive number. Okay, just to show you a few examples of what we do, what you need to now do is save this Excel document, but before you do that, you need to make a note of the tab sheet, because that, when we import it back into JDE, it's going to request that from us. We won't obviously alter this at this point, but you can rename that whatever you feel appropriate. However, just to let you know that it is case sensitive. And then also you need to make a note of the information, the cell that the information starts, which in this case is A2, and the last data cell for import, which in this case is U354. Okay, now if we save this, giving it a name that obviously you'll recognise for when you need to extract it back into JDE. And then close the file. Now we're back into JDE. We now need to use the function button for import grid. This will now bring up an import assistant. So we browse to find the file that you've just saved. And we put the tab sheet name here. And then on step 2, we need to do the start cell, which was A2, and the end cell, which was U354. Now the step 3 is where we're going to actually drop it into the grid below, which is cell A1. And if you apply, once the input is completed, the table will go blue. There we go. If we just hover over a couple of the cells that we've altered, there's the numbers for the grids. Once you're happy with this, you need to continue to save. If you don't do this, then you'll lose all the data that you just actually put in. So that's quite important that you remember that. And there you can see the original data now on our grid. And if you're happy with that, then you need to continue to save again, or OK to save. We can now use two options, as we discussed earlier, to check your input is correct to your source document. There's two methods to do this. You can either use the Excel export that we've just shown you, and you can compare that to your source document. But there's also a report within BI Publisher that we can use that can do both the forecast and the budget comparison for you. So we're just going to go into that now and show you this. I'm just going to hand you over to my colleague now, Sharon, who's going to go through the BI Publisher report for you.
Hi everyone. Right, I'm just going to show you where the reports are in BI Publisher. Obviously this is my logon, so it will be slightly different to yours, but if you navigate to your BI Publisher reports, obviously at the moment we're looking at the non-JDE locations. And you will find a folder called Business Plans and Budgets, and in that folder you will find the budgeted statement of financial position, which is your balance sheet, and your IFRS budgeted statement of comprehensive income is your P&L. So select whichever report you're going to be looking at first, and I'll show you your P&L. Reporting currency, at the moment you can see on screen, is only showing you three currencies for Euro, GBP, US dollars, because they were the base options we used last year. But we've had the report changed so that you can actually view it in your local currencies now. So we've just entered the data into company 840, so I'm going to select 840. And on my drop-down menu now, I will see the local currency for that company. Reporting date, I'm going to use the 30th of June because that's what we've specified within the budget process, that we're going to be using June actuals and forecasted numbers for the rest of the year. Alternatively, if you'd like to use your July numbers as your starting point, you can do that as well. Click on the calendar, change your month to June 2015, last day of the month. The budgeted exchange rate, click on the calendar again, and as instructed, we're using the 1st of July 2015 exchange rate for the budget process. On your forecast option, obviously we're going to be looking at F2. So click on the downward arrow and select F2. And just to view it to start with, to ensure that you've got the correct data selection, hit your view button. And now you can see we're reporting in the local currency, domestic currency, 6 months to the 30th of June. And obviously we can see the actuals in here. And then moving over, you will see your F2 numbers that you've actually input in your local currency. Year to date, year for the budget, the full year. And that's broken down by business unit for the budget purpose. And then end columns, which will just show you a full year figure for 2017 and 2018. So on this BI Publisher report, once you've input your forecast and your budget, you will be able to verify your numbers from this report And if there's any numbers in there that you think are incorrect, you can then go back into JDE, and if it's the only a couple of numbers that's out, you can actually go in and just change them manually, and then literally go back into this report again and then run it again to check your numbers. Doesn't matter how many times you run the report, it's not a problem, as long as at the end result you've got the numbers in that you can validate back to your source document.
Thank you for that, Sharon. So just to summarise then for this non-JDE users presentation, that the requirements are that for 2015 forecast F2, we require you to phase. Apologies, let me start that again. For 2015 F2, you are not required to phase either your P&L or your balance sheet, but just place your total forecasted number in period 12. For 2016 budgets, you are required to phase your P&L, but not to phase your balance sheet, just placing the number in period 12. For 2017 and 2018 budgets, you are required just to place your total budgeted figure in period 12, therefore not required to phase your budgets for those years. Okay then, so that concludes the presentation for the non-JDE users. If you'd like to leave the presentation at this point, feel free to do so. The rest of this presentation is focused on those JDE users and probably isn't applicable. But thank you for joining us.
Right, okay, now moving on to the full JDE users. I'm now going to obviously show you how to enter your budgets and forecast. The process is practically identical to the non-JDE users, except obviously we have a full chart of accounts set up and also full working business units as well. So obviously the chart accounts is slightly bigger, and also we'll be using sub-ledgers as part of the process as well. So I'm just going to log into JDE now. Okay, I'm going to navigate to the budget menu, because obviously some of you may have it saved on your favourites, some may not. So follow through. I'm using the UK as an example for this presentation. So you need to find your finance menu, general ledger, budgeting, budget entry, and budget entry by business unit. Okay, so enter your company number. Fiscal year obviously is 2015, and F2 for your forecast. As I said a few moments ago, we're going to be entering it by sub-ledger, purely because of the size of the chart of account and the different post and edit codes that we actually have in JDE. UK sub-ledger number is 11017, and your sub-ledger type is always going to be A for the address book, as this is where all your sub-ledgers are actually loaded within JDE. So this is the table that links to the address book. And if you do a find at this point in time, as you can see, it pulls up all of your business units within JDE, which also includes your branch plant setup as well. So your 100 obviously relates to your balance sheet, specifically for company 100. And then you will see further down, you will then see your individual business units that are set up within your own companies. So obviously Wire, Integra, Machines, etc. So I'm going to select the Wire, because you have to enter them obviously at each business unit level, which will then summarise up to a total for your budgets and your forecast. So you select the business unit, Again, show periods, and again, skip to the end. Same as non-JDE, you have the option to enter your numbers manually, or you have the option to upload them via Excel spreadsheet. So depending on how many business units you have and how many numbers you need to enter, I would suggest that you use the Excel option to upload your numbers. That way you will only be entering your numbers once manually, and then the import wizard will save that manual type into JDE. If you want to actually enter the numbers manually, obviously rather than show you over again how to actually enter those numbers, if you want to refer back to the beginning of this webinar, because the process is exactly the same for F2 and budget, the only thing you need to enter is your subledger number and type as part of the process. That's the only thing that's slightly different to the non-JDE users. The reason behind this is because the column PE is your posting edit code, and you will see some that have an N, which means non-posting, so you won't be able to enter any budget numbers on these lines because they're summarized lines. You will also see the letter L, which means you would need a subledger entered on that particular line. And then the other letter you will see is I, which means inactive, which means we don't use this particular object account anymore. It must have been used at some point in JDE and has a value in it, and we can't actually make that object code non-posting anymore. We can only make it inactive to stop people entering any values within those codes. So the export is exactly the same as it was for non-JDE users. You export the grid, export to Excel into a new workbook, click on the continue button. So as you can see here in slightly clearer, you can see your post edit, so you can see all your non-posting and your inactives, and obviously further down ones with an L, which will need obviously your subledger. So it just makes it slightly easier rather than thinking, does that particular code need a subledger? Yes, it does, or no, it doesn't. If you enter a subledger for all of the accounts, then it really doesn't make any difference, and it makes the upload process a lot quicker and smoother. So now that you're actually obviously in this document for your forecast, for your P&L, we only need to enter the values into period 12. And again, I should just reiterate that your revenue has to go in as a negative number, a credit for revenue. And obviously your costs have to go in as a positive number. And so they only have to go into period 12 because we're actually doing the forecast at the moment. When you've obviously entered all the relevant numbers, obviously sort of like save your document. Again, your sheet tab, if you want to rename that, I would rename that as my business unit as an example. And what you can do, if you have several business units, you can save your Excel exports and put them all in one file and just rename your sheet tabs by your business units, so that when you're importing that back into Excel, you're just pulling back from one file, and again you have all your numbers in the same location. Obviously, before closing the file down, just need to make a note of obviously the cell references where you need to import that grid. So your first one is going to be A2, and your end cell is U287. Now just need to close this file down, and then back to your grid. You click on the import grid, and your import assistant comes up. You browse to find your file again. Again, whatever you called your worksheet, you need to enter it in exactly as it is in your worksheet. Your starting cell A2, your ending cell U287, and obviously where you're going to select and paste in your grid, which is A. And your row is 1, and click on apply. Okay, once you've actually entered any data in there, obviously the cells turn blue. You can see the values in there. Click on apply. And then on your continue button to save what you've just done. If you see that yellow warning with regards to the DNS option, it just means do not spread. So we actually want to see the individual values in there. So it's just a warning, so you just click through that and save it. And this will bring you back to your front screen where your business unit is. Right, so once you've finished entering your forecast numbers, you can now move on to your budget numbers. So change your fiscal year to 2016. Change your ledger type to BA. And obviously, because we have not come out of this screen, your subledger number and type will obviously stay here. But each time if you actually exit out of this menu option, when you go back into it for any reason, you will need to enter your subledger type and number again. So I'm going to enter some budget numbers now and do much the same process. So I'm just going to select Integra this time. Again, we're 2016 BA subledger, so show periods and skip to the end. Okay, and obviously for this again, we export the grid. Click continue. Obviously we're looking at 2016 now, so we need to phase the revenue and costs for your budget 2016. And as Paula said earlier, this needs to represent obviously your business, so each month we would expect to see different values rather than phased evenly across the 12-month period. There could possibly be a few that may be even phasing, maybe in salary lines, just the odd one, but we would expect to see it replicate the look of the business. And again, revenue needs to be negative numbers. Costs, positive numbers. So once you've filled your Excel spreadsheet out and are happy with the numbers, again, well, obviously this is for budget, so I would save this file as a budget and again rename my sheet tab for the business unit that I'm working on. And again, make a note of your starting cell, which would be A2, and your ending cell would be U284. As you can see, these may vary depending on your business units that you have, because not all business units are set up exactly the same. So don't assume that your starting point and ending point will be the same on each sheet tab. So save your file. And close your document. So now we're still in the screen. So now we will import this grid back into JDE. You import assistant again, you browse to find your file. Enter your worksheet name. Your starting cell, A2 to U284. And we're going to paste it in the grid below. So your cell here is A1. Apply. Again, you will see the grid turn blue once your numbers have been imported. Click on the Apply button and then click Continue. Again, you've got this budget pattern code warning message. Once you've checked that your numbers are in there, as you can see, they're in the periods are in there. Click on the Save button. Brings you back to your front screen again. So for however many business units, obviously you just have to upload your numbers back into JDE on each business unit. Once you're happy with what you've actually entered into JDE, again, now we can go to the BI Publisher report. I'm logged in as a non-JDE user at the moment, so I just need to find the JDE reports which sit in the global folder in Finance. Then we've got a folder called Business Plan Reports. And again, you have one called the Statement of Comprehensive Income, which is your profit and loss, and your Statement of Financial Position, which is your balance sheet. I will show you the P&L report like I did earlier. Obviously, I'm using Company 100. as an example, and obviously our base currency over here is sterling anyway, so I don't need to change any options in there. So reporting currency is pound sterling. Reporting date, click on the calendar, go to June, last day of the month. Budgeted exchange rate is July the 1st, and forecast, we're looking at F2. Again, we can view this report. This may take a little while to run because the full JDE users obviously have a lot more data for the report to go back to the table to pull. So it just may take a little bit longer than your non-JDE users. Okay, so obviously you see your 6 months of actuals on screen. Your next column's broken down by business unit for your forecast. Your budget for 2016 by business unit, and just a total for 2017 budget and 2018 budget. If you're happy with what you see on your screen, you can then export this data if you want to Excel. Obviously, if the numbers are incorrect, you can go back into JDE and change those numbers manually, and then just again rerun this report as many times until you've validated that your numbers are correct to your source document. Obviously, once the numbers are verified and you do actually want to export it, you just change your option to Excel and export the file to Excel. This opens up in a different format. You just say yes to that comment, and obviously you then have it in Excel, and you can save this down to compare to your source document. Okay, that obviously finishes the process of actually entering your forecasts and budgets into JDE, and obviously checking the validity of your numbers. If you have any questions, you can obviously either email us on the new budget email address, or obviously if it's a quick answer, we're contactable via Google if you want to talk to us and help you through any of the processes.
Thank you, Sharon. Well, that concludes, as Sharon says, the presentation. Just to remind you that there are a suite of papers, templates and instructions to support the budget and forecast process, which you can find on the Google Drive, which I believe has been shared with you. Thank you for joining us, and should you have any queries, please don't hesitate to get in touch.